actually have extra copies?
Of the outline?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to give Shabbat Shalom. Rabbi probably has it in a folder.
Blue cards that are usually used to add names.
Yeah. Are they not out there? That's not good. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do.
Yes, sir.
Samta? Huh?
Check, check.
I'm going to start with it on the agenda just now. Whatever your heart desires, as long as you feel comfortable doing it enough.
I might just need some help with the chanting. We'll see how I feel.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're going to begin on page 10 in your prayer book. But we'll begin on a nigun, a voiceless, or a wordless, not voiceless, a wordless prayer. This feels very quiet all of a sudden. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Yedi nefesh av harachaman, Yedi nefesh av harachaman, Mishoch avdecha, El ritzonecha, Mishoch avdecha, Lai 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 lai, El ritzonecha. Yarutz avdecha kemoya yishtachavei lai 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 el mu'adarecha.
We're going to welcome in our Sabbath angels, page 24. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Chasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei HaMalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Chasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei HaMalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Poem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nile Shalom Malachei Shalom Malachei Elyon Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nile Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei HaMalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeichem l'Shalom, Malachei
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So, it feels really late, doesn't it? It's because it's been dark for so long. This is actually the shortest day of the year. There are two midrashim in the Talmud where Adam and Eve are confronting darkness. The first is on the first day when the sun begins to go down and Adam is afraid. And so he sits separately from Eve and they both cry and pray. And then the next day, what happens? The sun comes up. The second story in the Talmud is about this time of year when the days get shorter and shorter and Adam is scared. And this time, he brings Eve with him and they pray for 8 days. And our rabbis say that this is the precursor to Hanukkah. So at this time, when our days are so short, they're about to get longer and longer and full of more and more light. And what I want us to realize is that when we invite people in, we can create light together. And so thank you for being here and being our light and celebrating Shabbat with us. May, for you and for all the Jewish people, only lightness increase. We're going to continue by welcoming it in our Sabbath bride on page 20.
Lecha dodi likra kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likra kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zochor b'dibur echad, Hishmianu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, v'shemo tiferet v'litila, lecha dodi likra kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Dodi likra kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mikor habracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof maaseh b'machshava techila. Lecha dodi likra kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likra kala pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Please rise and face the door as we welcome in our Sabbath bride.
Boi chala, 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 boi chala. Lecha dodi likra kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Boi kala, 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 boi kala.
We can be seated. So we have a lot to celebrate this evening, including the bat mitzvah of Violet Span. So it's my pleasure to invite Violet and her parents, Melissa and Stephen, and her brother Archer, to our bima to help us kindle our Shabbat lights and make kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav rotzilanu v'shabbat kodsho b'achava u'ratzon hinhilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reshit ki hu yom tehillah l'mikrei kadesh zeher lihiyat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshaha b'ahava u'ratzon hinhatanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
L'chaim. Mazel tov. We're going to invite you to stay here on the bima. We're going to continue now with our call to worship, the Baruch Hu, on page 28. If you're able, please rise.
Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Please join me on the top of page 31. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars, creator of the tide of time and light. You guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. God's Love, page 32.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha ahavta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadeta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbeinu u'vkumeinu nasiach bechukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha ובמצוותיך לעולם, לעולם ועד. אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadeta. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael ohev amo Yisrael. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha ahavta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadeta.
I said we had a lot to celebrate today. Today, someone has chosen to officially join our ranks and add to the Jewish people. It is my pleasure to invite Jack Ridgway to join us on the bima. We don't always get like a woot woot from Rabbi Barris, so that was pretty exciting too.
Wow, I got some applause. Thank you. Earlier, Rabbi Greengrass said that this is one of the shortest days of the year. And for me, it's probably been one of the most fulfilling and happiest days of my year. This morning, I had a mikveh ceremony, followed by a Beit Din rabbis here. And I just wanted to say that throughout the process, this process has been just over a year long now, I've gotten so many words of support, words of encouragement, questions even about the process and about Judaism. And I think that really speaks volumes for how welcoming this congregation is and the Jewish people who I've gotten to know so dearly over the past few years are. So I just want to say thank you to everyone here tonight. And more importantly, or more specifically, I wanted to say thank you to my future parents-in-law, Heidi and Scott, for supporting me along the way. So thank you for having me here tonight.
Stay. All right, Jack, I'm going to invite you to come here as we open the ark. Jack, you stand before the open ark and before the commanding presence of the Torah, the Jewish people's most cherished treasure. Here, find us. Get the good shot for them. Let them see your gorgeous punim. Right. It has led us on the way and guided us ever since we received it at Sinai. It has been carried during the times of our greatest rejoicing and when we fled from burning synagogues and villages. The Torah is now in your arms. Take it to your heart as we now recite the Shema, the words on the lips of the Jew until the moment of death, the affirmation that has sustained the Jewish people in life since our beginning.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vad.
We can be seated. Violet, please join us and lead us in the Via Hafta, page 36.
Ve'ahavta Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher nahi mitzaveha hayom Vishinantam Lavanaha Vidibartam Bam Vishiftaha Vivetaha Uvlektaha Vaderech Ushokveha Uvkumeha Ukshartam Leo Ayadeha Vihayulatotafo Beineneha Uktavtam Almazizobeteha Uvishareha Leman Tiskeru Vasitem Ekomitzvotai Vihitem Kedoshim Elohehem Ani Adonai Elohehem Asher Hotzetiahem Me'eretz Mitzrayim Lihiot Lahem Lelohim Ani Adonai Elohehem.
You did great. All right, you can go down and give him here. Thank you, Violet. And as we think about bringing more and more light into our world, we remember the moments of freedom where our ancestors finally experienced that light and tasted freedom for the first time and sang out, because only music can sometimes capture our emotions. So please join us with the Micha Mocha, page 40.
Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? La 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osei fele, nora tehilot osei fele. Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? Ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Hashkivenu, asking for God's protection, page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Oshmor tzeitenu uvoenu lechaim u'shalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu shomreinu Mashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'amidenu shomreinu lechaim.
Baruch atah Adonai hapurei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amel Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Praying for God to spread a sukkah of peace over us and over our brothers and sisters in Israel. Pray as if everything depended on God, but act as if everything depended on you. Let us rise together in prayer, page 46.
Adonai, Sefatai Tiftach, Ufi Agi, Tehilatecha. Adonai, Sefatai Tiftach, Ufi Agi, Tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Bekoneh Hakol, Bezocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atah, Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechakel Chayim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Berofech Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umidom Melach, Melech Memit Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata l'hachayot ha'kol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye ha'kol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el ha'kadosh.
We continue with our personal prayers, either those in the book or those in our hearts. You can be seated when you're done.
יחיו לרצון עם רביב panecha Adonai tzuri v'goli Adonai tzuri v'goli.
I've had a lot of conversations with people lately about where we should be or where we'd like to be. The kinds of people that I spend my time usually talking to are people who are obsessed with what's going on in Israel, and they wonder, is the right thing to do to be there? Is the right thing to do to be here? And it's something that we've thought a great deal about. There's no other people that have this. There are no other religions that have a country that's just theirs that they're so focused on. In fact, a lot of other religions throughout history, they wanted to settle the whole world. They wanted to spread their religion all over the globe. And they thought we could live anywhere. In fact, we should live everywhere. And they tried. You never heard about the Jews crusading across Belgium, trying to convert everybody to Judaism. You never heard about the Jews, wandering through Asia, forcing people to eat matzah on Pesach. It's not us, not who we are. I have a friend who's a rabbi in the Israeli army. I've known him for many years, and he works for a lot of causes in Israel, and he comes to America a lot to raise money. And he was telling me a story once that he was at Ben Gurion Airport, and he was sitting getting ready to take a flight to America, and he was sitting at his gate next to this old Hasidic rabbi, and Rabbi Hammer's a tall guy. This guy, he said he was like 5'4", with the hat, the beard, the whole. And they start talking as they're sitting at the gate, and the old man says to my friend Rabbi Hammer, who's a few years older than me, he says, I'm in my 80s. My whole life, I've never been outside the land of Israel. I was born here. I've been here the whole time. I've never left Israel. And Rabbi Hammer said to him, wow, I leave all the time. Sometimes I feel that Israel is so small, I feel so constrained here, I just have to leave. And the man said to Rabbi Hammer, sometimes I feel that I'm too small for the land of Israel. It's a story that has stuck with me for a long time. I've told it many times. But it's a connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel that nobody else really has with their land and their religion like we do. There's a rabbi named the Rambam. We named our school after him. Rambam's just not a fun name to say. It's named after an actual rabbi. You've heard of him? Rambam is also known as Maimonides, and he was born in Spain in 1135. He left Spain when the Arabs came there and drove him out and made his way to Morocco. And then he went to Israel. But when he was in Israel, there were no Jews there. There was no community, and he couldn't survive. So he went to Egypt, where he became the doctor for the Sultan of Egypt. And he did well in Egypt. But while he was in Egypt, he wrote his precise summary of the Talmud, in which he went through all of the mitzvahs. And here he was living in Egypt, writing and getting to the mitzvah that says a Jew is not supposed to live in Egypt. So here he is writing and railing against the Jew from ever thinking of going back to Egypt while sitting by the Nile. It's a weird thing to say. Don't ever move back here, except I live here. One of the mitzvahs is don't ever move back to Egypt, because Egypt in the Torah was the den of idolatry. And after the Jews left Egypt, they kept saying we should go back. because there's no food in the wilderness, or there's no water in the wilderness, or people are trying to kill us in the wilderness, and we should go back to Egypt. And so the Torah comes and says, don't ever go back to Egypt. It's a den of idolatry, which it was. But by the time Maimonides got there, it had already turned to Islam, and it was no longer a place of idol worship, and so it was permissible for a Jew to live there. Ever since biblical times, the question of where a Jew should be has been considered. In the Torah, there was a famine, and Abraham and Sarah left and went down to Egypt. Then they came back after a negative experience. In the next generation, there was another famine, and Isaac went down to Egypt, and God came to him and said, not you, don't make the same mistake as your father. Turn around and go back. And Isaac did, and he survived. In this week's Torah portion, Jacob is living in Israel, but he finds out, after thinking that his son was sold into slavery or dead, most likely dead, he finds out that Joseph is still alive. And not only is he alive, he's living in Egypt, the place that God warned his father Isaac to never go to. When we come to the portion this week in Genesis chapter 46, Jacob's on his way down to Egypt to reunite with his son Joseph, who he thought has been dead all of these years. And God comes to him like he came to Isaac and says, don't fear going down to Egypt, for I will make you there into a great nation. Don't fear going down to Egypt. So if there's one thing we know, he's scared. And the reason he's scared is because the one who comes to him and says, don't be scared, is God. And God's pretty good at reading like your facial expression. He knows how you feel. Why is Jacob scared? And what does God tell him, which gives us some insight into why he's scared? He says, don't worry, I'm going to make you into a great nation. Why is he scared? He's scared because he's being forced to leave the land of Israel. He knows at his older age he's likely never coming back, and he fears that the dream is over. What was the dream? This is a very pivotal moment in the Torah. The dream was, God told Abraham, I'm going to make your children like the stars of the sky and the sands of the sea. And God said the same thing to Isaac. Your children are going to be like the stars of the sky and the sands of the sea. And Jacob's finally in the land of Israel, ready to make it happen. He's got 12 sons. I met someone today who had 43 grandkids. It's a lot of tuition. But Jacob said, I don't care about that. I'm going to have more kids than you could. I got 12 sons we're going to have. And he says, God says to him, don't be scared. He's scared that going down to Egypt, that great nation that we've been planning, the dream's over. The Jewish nation is over. It can't be done if we go down to Egypt. And that's where we're going. The rabbis help us to understand in the Talmud why God had to come and intercede and give Jacob a pep talk and explain to him what was going on. God recognized that Jacob had already lived in the diaspora. There was that time when his brother Esau chased him away and he had to go and live with Laban. And he was there for 20 years. And the whole time he was there, Laban, his father-in-law, tried to convince him to worship idols and go away from Torah. And he was afraid, when you leave Israel, you know what happens when you leave Israel? There's other people out there. And you know what they try to do? They try to get you to follow their religions. They try to get you to assimilate. And Jacob said, if we leave, that's what's going to happen. The dream is over. Because he thought you couldn't be a Jewish nation outside the land of Israel. Especially in Egypt, the place that was considered the pantheon of idolatrous behavior. But once God reassures him That yes, and it says this in the Torah in chapter 46 of Genesis, you will still become a great and powerful nation, and it will happen in Egypt. Then Jacob comes to a realization, and he says this to himself. If the Jews are going to survive outside the land of Israel, then they have to invest in their relationship with God and its teachings. So he comes up with a plan. And he says, I need to find someone. I need to find someone that I could send ahead of me to go down to Egypt and set up a plan. So he takes his son Judah, from whom all the kings would later come, starting with King David, from whom the Messiah someday should come. And he says to Judah, I want you to go to a city called Goshen. And when you get to Goshen, I want you to start setting up Jewish centers. Why Goshen? If you fast forward to the book of Exodus, you'll see that when the Jews were slaves in Egypt for 210 years, they lived in a place called Goshen. And Jacob said to himself, I see that my people are going to be down there. And if they're ever going to come out of there, and if we're ever going to survive this trip into the diaspora that's going to last hundreds of years, then we need Jewish centers. We need a place that binds us to our tradition. I need to find someone who can build a building that has a basketball court and a cafe called the Hub, and turn it into something special. I thought that was funnier when I wrote it. I don't know why. He tells Judah, make sure when you go to Goshen, you set up places to worship God, to study, to be together as Jews. And when Jacob gets to Egypt, he's thrilled to see that Joseph is alive, but he's not so pleased to see how comfortable that Joseph has become in the diaspora. And how do we know this? Because he says to Joseph, I'm not coming to meet you at your palace. I'm not coming to see where you live. I'm not interested in how successful you are. I'll meet you in a place called Goshen. I'll meet you, Joseph, not in your palace, not with the Pharaoh. I'll meet you in a place that Judah's coming to set up as a Jewish center, in the city where Jews will nurture their community, in the home where the Jewish people will grow into a great nation, as God had promised Jacob. We Jews today are not always in the land of Israel. Over the last 2 millennia, history has happened to the Jews. But we've proved something to ourselves. We've proved it to ourselves in accordance with God's directive to Jacob, that if we are sent out into the diaspora, if we continue to say, Im eshkechech Yerushalayim, if I should forget you, O Jerusalem, if the Jewish centers that we build in the diaspora are strong, if we maintain our connection to our roots, if we hold on deeply to our relationship to the land and people of Israel, then God tells us, not only can you survive and thrive outside of the land of Israel, but I and my glory will come with you. At the end of the book of Genesis, the family of the Israelites, Bnei Yaakov, Jacob's family, totals 70 individuals. That's how Genesis ends. We're a small clan made up of 70 people. Genesis ends. But then Exodus begins. And how does Exodus begin? The Pharaoh says, the Israelites have become too numerous for us. The Israelites are now too many. They'll overtake us if we don't enslave them. And all the while the Jews dreamed of returning someday to their sacred land, a great nation was born. the descendants of Jacob who held firm to their traditions, who built and sustained the strong Jewish centers that Judah had established, who cherished their relationship with Jews across the globe, especially in the land of Israel, persisted in strength and in spirituality. God came to Jacob and he said, "Do not fear. You will still become a great nation even in the diaspora. In Egypt, we became a great nation. We grew too numerous. We became like the stars of the sky and the sands of the sea. Ma'aseh avot siman lebanim. Just as they did in the diaspora, so too do we." Can you hear that song? May this be God's will. Amen.
So we know that the dream is not lost. We know that because we have young people like Violet celebrating a bat mitzvah this weekend, becoming a bat mitzvah. We know that because Jack has chosen to join the Jewish people. We know that in a few years, Abigail will have a bat mitzvah, and Kyla will have a bat mitzvah in a few weeks, and Violet baked challah with her grandmother and is passing those traditions on. So we know that the dream of the Jewish people continues. And this dream is strengthened when we reach out and care for each other. One of the ways we do that is by thinking of our family, our loved ones, and our friends who need our prayers for healing. So if you are thinking of loved ones and you would like to share their names before we sing off our prayer for healing, those who need a refuat haguf, a healing of the body, refuat nefesh, renewal of the spirit, those who are struggling with addiction, those who are struggling with abuse and all of the ills in our world, you may share your loved one's name. At this time, you can raise your hand up high. Jen? Thank you. Joan? Thank you. Don, way in the back? Thank you. Paul? Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. Marlo? Thank you. Michael? Thank you. Martin? Thank you. Mindy? Thank you. If I've missed you, call out. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai rofeh cholim. Blessed are you, Adonai. May you be the healer of the sick. Amen. On our song sheets, you can join with us.
Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Return to page 282, and if you're comfortable to do so, we rise for the Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו ככם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. We think of our loved ones, those whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. We are especially thinking for all those who lost their lives in Israel on October 7th, and since, all of those defending the state of Israel. Zichronam levracha, may their memories be for a blessing. It is our custom here at Temple Beth Am that if your loved one's name is called before the Kaddish, to stand and stay standing through the mourner's Kaddish. On this Erev Shabbat, we send condolences to the family of Alice Levy. We say Kaddish tonight for Michael Arnold, Jack DeLaster. We're thinking of those who have passed in the last 30 days: Arthur Kurtz, Irene Trupkin, Saul Rahaney, Peter Bass. We are remembering those who have passed during this last year: Joan Axler, Chaim Aklepi, Patricia Gaga Barrett, Lillian Berman, Barbara Bronfman, Bernard Eckstein, Arthur Farkas, Florence Farkas, Lawrence Larry Stewart Foreman, Linda Frankel, Mitchell Friedman, Jocelyn Jeroff, Glenn Goldberg, Gershon Spencer, Svika Golod, Judith Gilbert Gould, Andrew Gross, Dr. Martin Glazer, Jennifer Gross, Joseph Harvest, Dr. Jeffrey Hertz, Dr. Warren Janowitz, Howard Kleinberg, Sandra Sandy Kramer, Ruth LaShaw, Janice Levy, Ellen Ellie Levine, Phyllis Lieberman, Solomon Pinkert, Anna Sheldon, Elisa Poyastro, Karen Michelle Solomon, Debbie Sandberg, Michael Schellist, Michelle Hope Sherry, Susan D. Score, David Sokol, Tanya Stern, Ilya Stolyar, Bela Malka, Marsha Weinstein, Daniel Zalkberg. We remember our loved ones who have come before us whose yortzites occur at this time: Frida Abrams, James H. Ankes, Irving Applebaum, Luisa Avila, Bernice Balaban, Isabel Barton, Dr. Sidney Sims Beffeler, Shirley Berger, Lenore Burkow, Edith Berman, Larry Berger, Bert Bloom, Bernard Braverman, Grace K. Brings, Ralph E. Cades, Dora Colley, Colonel Arthur Kahn, Dr. Norman Corin, Al Drescher, Ruth Zion Dubin, Cindy Bachner-Derm, Chet Allen Elfenbein, Saul J. Epstein, Louisa Eskenazi, Maurice Fusener, Morris Frank, Tilly Friedman, Harvey Friedman, Harold Gordon Furman, Lauren Gelford, Sophie Gilbert, Dr. Louis Glazer, Estelle Goldberger, Pearl Goldman, Samuel Shmuel Goldstein, Herbert Marvin Goodman, Henry D. Green, Lillian Grossman, Esther Hallberg, Cora Harris, Dr. Stephen Harris Herman, Sarah Hockman, Louisa Horwitz, Norman D. Jacobs, Peter Jacobs, Belle Jacoby, Joel H. Jankowitz, Elizabeth O. Judelson, Emil Katz, Florence Katzman, Nathan Katzman, Joseph Keene, Sarah Klar, Ali Kaudner, Dora Corin, George Kramer, Louise Kublin, Princess Kublin, Helen Lair Litauer, Milton Zeke Lenga, Miriam Levinson Quatcher, Walter Lieberman, Mark A. Light, Ruth Lorber, Lester Margolis, Jerry Moss, Bertie Krupshire Olenek, Edward Ringel, Harry Rogel, Edward Rubin, Aaron Salem, Isidore Salzberg, Daniel G. Satin, Charles Shiner, William Scher, Joseph Scheimer, Harold Joseph Schmeier, Harold Schofel, Ida Seldich, Joseph Schulman, Solomon Siegel, Louise Snyder, Robert Sobey, Gary Bryan Solomon, Samuel Steen, Morton D. Steubens, David Stuzen, Lillian Suskin, Sidney Suss, Esther Swartz, Bertram J. Thorpe, Leonard Tropin, Oscar Unger, Jack B. Weintraub, Michael Weiss, Catherine Werner, Moses Wickner, Phyllis Spiegel Wolf, Jamie Alyssa Zabludowski, Charles Zagorski, Lily Jacob Zelmanovic, Blair Zimet. If there are others we are thinking of this evening and you would like to stand and share their names, please do so. Thank you. Thank you. We turn to page 294 and rise together as one community. We join in the mourner's Kaddish. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma Divra Chirutei V'yamlich Malchutei B'chayei Chon U'vyomei Chon U'vchayei D'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala U'vizman Kori V'yamru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam U'lomei Olmaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei T'Kudusha B'richu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiran bi'alma v'yamru amen. Yehi shaloma rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen. May the one who sends peace from the high heavens send peace to all of us, send peace to all the world, and may God send comfort to all who are bereaved. Together we say, Amen. You may be seated. We invite for words of Shabbat reading the president of our board of directors, Rich Siegel.
Shabbat Shalom. First, I'd like to thank Rabbi Barris, Greengrass, and Aklepi, and Jessica for a beautiful service. Lyra, as always, beautiful on the piano. Mazel tov to the Span family on Violet's bat mitzvah tomorrow. That's great. And we have Jack. Jack, I'm going to come back to you later. A couple of announcements, things coming up at Temple that I wanted to bring to your attention. On January 12th is the Martin Luther King Jr. Shabbat. It's always one of the best Shabbats of the year. We're joined by our friends from the St. Peter's Missionary Baptist Church, including the Reverend Robert Brooks. And it's really just a great Shabbat service and an even better dinner to follow. So I'd encourage you to come to that. And then on Thursday, January 12th, at the Hub, there's a comedian named Gianmarco Cerisi, who's a Jewish-Italian comedian. And I know what you all are saying, Rich, you're the funniest Jewish guy we know, which thank you for that. But I've actually watched a couple of this kid's YouTube videos. He's hilarious. So watch him on YouTube, and I'm sure you're going to want to come out on the 12th. And then turning to my general remarks for tonight, as the regulars here know, I get a sneak preview of the program every Friday morning. And I pour through it while I work from home on Fridays, and I saw there was a conversion, Jack Ridgway. And I said, oh, that's interesting. So as my daughters will tell you, I am a really almost creepy cyber stalker. So I'm like, I'm going to find out everything there is to know about Jack Ridgway. So I'm working while I'm Googling him, and first I see he lives in Miami, and he went to University of Michigan. So, of course, the first thing that came to my mind is, what does he have to be converted for? I figured he'd already be Jewish. But then I looked at his bio a little bit, and it became apparent very quickly he's a really, really outstanding hockey player. And I said, oh, so he's not Jewish then, because no Jewish mother is ever going to let their son play hockey, at least not competitively. In fact, I thought I would do something witty about Jewish and hockey players, and I didn't know anything about Jewish and hockey. I actually went to ChatGPT, and I said, please tell me something interesting about Judaism and hockey. And, it's grinding away, and it comes back, and it's actually said, there is nothing interesting about Judaism and hockey, and it gave me a link to a mandelbread recipe. So I don't really understand the whole thing. So I keep Googling back and forth, and I see there's a wedding website with Jack Ridgway. And I'm not paying a lot of attention. It says, Jack Ridgway and Harvey Weinstein. I'm like, I thought he was in jail. Like, maybe this was like a prison romance. How nice that they found each other. He's in prison and Jack's here. And then I said, oh, no. It's Harley Weinstein. And I'm like, I know that, Harley Weinstein, I know that name. So I immediately pull up the Beth Am directory, which I'm sure everyone keeps on their homepage like I do. And I'm like, Harley is Heidi's daughter. Heidi Sokol Weinstein, which is Jerry Sokol's sister. It's like, he's like Mishbucha. I know this kid. So I go way back with the Sokols. I've known Jerry probably almost 20 years. Jerry was the one that introduced me to the firm where I've been working for the last almost 20 years. So he's responsible. I called Jerry up. I'm like, Jerry, is your niece's fiance getting converted tonight at Beth Am? He's like, yeah, how would you know that? I'm like, oh, because I'm the president there now. He says, oh, really? Because how much he keeps in touch with me. And Jerry says, he's a great kid. And there's one thing that I think people who know Jerry know. If Jerry tells you that someone is a great person, it doesn't necessarily mean he's a great person. However, with the imprimatur of all of the other Sokols and the Weinsteins, and on top of that, the wonderful remarks you had earlier tonight, Jack, I know you are a wonderful person. You're a wonderful addition to our community. I do feel like a de facto member of the Sokol family. I feel like I'm a de jure member of the Beth Am family. So on behalf of both my de facto family and my de jure family, welcome to my families. We're happy to have you as part of us. And with that, Shabbat Shalom.
I told you, Jack, we're afraid of Heidi. We are continuing. We're going to ask everybody who's able and comfortable to do so to please rise. We have been closing our services with Hatikva, the Israeli national anthem, and we are combining that following Hatikva, into Gesher Tzar Ma'od. The whole world's a very narrow bridge, and the main thing is not to be afraid. It is also found on your song sheet, and we join together, facing the flag.
Kol od balevav penima, nefesh Yehudi homia, ulfa'ate mizrach kadima, ayin letzion Sophia. Oh, love the tikvatenu, hatikva ashnodal ba'im, liotam chovshi be'artzenu, Eretz Zion Yerushalayim. Lichot אדם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. והעיקר לא לפחד, לא לפחד כלל. והעיקר לא לפחד כלל. והעיקר לא לפחד, לא לפחד כלל. והעיקר לא לפחד כלל. לי, 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 יא לי, 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 כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד.
Turn to the people next to you and behind you and in front of you and wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom.